Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Butternomics. I'm your host, Brandon Butler, founder and CEO of Butler ATL. And today, we got somebody special in the building, man. We got my guy, Onaje Henderson from Zucot Gallery in the building. Onaje, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me.
I've been trying to get you in here for a minute, man. You know what I'm saying? Man, you busy like me, dog. You busy like me, man.
Trying to be.
Hey, man, no, you're not trying. You doing, man. So, look, man, for those who don't know, man, tell people real quick, what is Zucot?
So Zukot, we are art gallery. We specialize in original works of art by living artists back from diaspora. We've been around for about 15 years, and we're one of the largest in the Southeast. And really, our focus is in the education space as well, and just trying how do we normalize the idea of collecting culture? How do we get more of us to buy art? How do we create unapologetically a black space where everyone is welcome, but our story is being told in that space?
Man, first of all, man, you ran through that very nicely, man. I feel like that's not the first time you've said that. But I want to go back because you said it so quickly. I want to kind of go back on it for a second. Now, you said y'all are one of the biggest in the Southeast.
Yes.
Like, tell me a little bit more about that. Like, how did you get to the point to where you all had one of the biggest black art galleries in the Southeast?
It's funny. Unfortunately, it's not that difficult to do right now. If you think about works or African American art galleries in general, you can almost compare it to food deserts. And when you start looking at the number of African American art galleries in the nation, it's not a whole lot of us, especially when you begin to look at those that are specifically focused on art and are specifically focused on a particular set of artists or set type of format. And I think that when you look at like places like Atlanta, we have a few black-owned galleries in the city. Then you start jumping around, you start looking at the number of galleries, you start seeing where are they, and you start jumping states.
Yeah.
And it's okay, so the question then becomes, why is that? And now it's our responsibility to either A, create a hunger for it, or also then help others or encourage others to do the same. Because the issue becomes then is that we need these things to exist, but the other part of it is that we need people to collect the work. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of artists that are creating wonderful pieces right now with no place to show.
Yeah. Now, take me back to the beginning, man. Like, what was your relationship with art growing up? Because I'm really interested to understand how does somebody get from, because I mean, we were talking about this before, like you have a background in engineering and now you're owning and running an art gallery, right? So like, what was your relationship with art growing up and how did you end up in that space?
So it's funny, my father, who's also an engineer, has been a painter and artist our entire lives. And matter of fact, when he was at Tuskegee, he was the campus artist back then. Okay. So growing up, we would see my father paint in the garage, which was the studio, every day. And growing up around art our entire lives, my parents always made sure also we were everywhere. You know, being from Atlanta, you remember all the cultural events and all the things that were happening in the city. You know, whether National Black Arts Festival was huge, Jazz Fest was huge, but every other cultural parade and things like that, we were part of all of that stuff. And my parents just made sure we were going. So being around culture and being part of it was just natural for us. Yeah. It was so natural to when my brother went to Tuskegee, who's also a chemical engineer. Okay. After that first week, he came back home and got some artwork for the dorm room because he just was used to being around it. And so I think growing up in something, you realize the absence of it when it's not there. Yeah. And how important it is, and even how important it is to who you are, how it makes you feel, and all those things. So that's how we got our first interest or level into. I mean, we're talking plays and everything else was growing up as kids. Now, when we got in college, my father left corporate and he began doing art full time. When I got my scholarship to school, my dad said, all right, I'm out.
My job's done.
Exactly. He's going to focus on the art full time. And so when I graduated, I'm the youngest. I called Omari and I said, look, I think it's time for us to take up the business side for Dad. Because at that point, he was doing exhibitions around the city, but also doing a lot of shows around the country, just kind of floating around, making it happen. And so that's what we did. And so at that point, we would go around and I don't know if you remember the DeFore Center off Howell.
I remember DeFore, yeah.
We did our very first show there. We would use our corporate dollars to rent gallery spaces to do exhibitions. And when we realized, even at that age, I had to be like 24 years old, that no one was talking to us when we would go into galleries. Yeah. And they would see us, they would assume we couldn't afford it, whatever it was. And it was not a lot of spaces in Atlanta where you could actually buy work by people like you, in this case, Black people. So we saw that opening there as well. So we start inviting our friends to these exhibitions. We go out to a space, rent it for just a few days, put up an entire exhibition, curate it, everything, sell work, take everything back down, and then we do it within 4 or 5 days, and that's how we started.
Man, so one thing that comes out of that, man, is obviously you're way more cultured than me growing up. Because let me tell you something, man. When I went to college, bro, the most you see in somebody's dorm room is that little Kim poster,
Right.
some old Hennessy bottles with some blue with the magic marker and stuff in them with some black lights. I mean, like just
That was there too.
just like tell me, like like thinking about art in that space. I think it's really important too because you talked about how you kind of grew up with the culture and kind of grew up with it, right? Like now your dad, he didn't have a gallery. He was just an artist.
Yes.
So how did you actually? So you actually kind of saw that opportunity, right? And you started bringing that art back. Like, what was that like in school? Because I feel like there probably weren't a lot of people doing that same thing when you were in college.
No, so and honestly, when we were in school, it was just watching what he was doing and just watching the hustle and bustle, man. Like artists got to work hard, man. Like it's like anything else, right? The arts in general is a difficult business. When I say in general, I'm saying from actors on stage to even down to movie actors. When you're not working, you're not working. Right. You know what I mean? And so it's the same for all of it. And I think in recognizing that, and just recognizing that, I know Omari and I grew up. My brother Omari and I grew up with entrepreneurs in the family, and then recognizing that at some point I knew that I would never let the golden handcuffs get me, right? So before I even left college to go into corporate, I knew at some point I was going to exit out of this and do something else. And so the gallery piece of it didn't start to further on in the story. What we started out was how can we help this situation right here? We also recognized though that no one was talking to us. You got this group of black people, young black people who have money, who want to be educated on things, and no one's speaking to us. And if they are speaking to us, it's about things that literally, arguably, the value of it all is sheer just vanity. Yeah. And so, what else can we have in that? And so, I think that just comes from once you grow up with art or see it or you appreciate it, you realize like this is something I want to spread to everybody else. So it really came out of a love for just that and the artists who create the work.
Yeah. Now, again, we talk about art a lot of times, and I tell people, especially because I deal with a lot of creatives too, and I tell people like, look, I have no desire to be a starving artist. You know what I mean? Because here's the thing, right? Like good art and good content does require a business model, and that's what I mean by that, right? Like it's one thing to get out here and just make it for the love of it, and I totally respect the people that do that, but at the same time, if you're trying to build a business around it, you got to have a business model. You got to be able to generate it. Like, when did you all kind of start to see the business opportunity? Like you said, y'all just were kind of getting spaces and doing your own thing. But when did you all kind of start to see the business opportunity around what you all were doing?
It's funny. We would begin to see people come to these shows that we do for their weekend. We're looking around. We're like, wait a minute, there's some gallery owners in here, and they're trying to figure out how we got these people in here. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, we were talking to our peer group, right? But we also knew that they couldn't approach our peer group like we could. Yeah. So we were also positioned to have a conversation and to relate in a way that they couldn't. And so I think that was part of it, being able to have that level of access. But also, it's the starving artist thing again, right? You see some great work, like everyone should see this. So naturally, you're looking at it from that standpoint. So I think in all of this, and even to this day, it's still more passion with a business model around it. But there's such a community piece of it, and so much of all these other things that are baked into. For example, some of us have even issues with seeing our images on walls, and we don't know what that's from, right? So, we'll even have clients to this day saying, "I love that piece, but I don't want it to be too offensive." And you're like, "Offensive to who?" Yeah. Like, but we'll have a client who's not black who look at that work and say, "I want it, I love it." And so it's like, even the way we see things. So you realize you're dealing with something larger than just a business model, but it's also an attempt to awaken a sleeping giant in a sense. And so it's a little bit of everything. So it's this business piece of it, but then there's this passion piece of it, and this compassion and grace. There's all these other things involved in it too, and that's what makes it so interesting. But also we come from these areas of disruption and innovation. So we're asking questions like, okay, so why do we do it this way? And is there a better model? And who was this model designed for initially anyway? Were we even considered as people when this model was created, right? And so then we begin to question all these things and say, well, how do we change it and make it work for us? Yeah. And I think with that type of or that level of sensitivity, you end up with a pretty interesting business model around it. But I think part of that, the initial piece of it, was that when we start seeing that there was a true interest from our friends, right? Man, I never thought I could have this. Or the perception that this is something that white people do, and especially rich white people, especially older rich white people. And it's like, no, it's for you, black at 24. You know what I mean? And so I think it opened up some minds that way as well.
What for a lot of people, because I mean, you all have been in business now how long?
As a gallery, 15 years.
15 years, right? And so, I always kind of think about, music artists' first album. Right, that first album, they was hungry, right, and they was out here, and that it blew up, and then like some of them, they keep going, some of them kind of fizzle off, but like that original time is always so interesting. Like, what do you miss most about that time when y'all were kind of just getting started and out here just learning the game?
I think part of it is just in business, just being naive a lot of times. It's like you'll try things now that your brain will tell you not to now. And sometimes you almost have to get some of that naivety back, yeah, to sometimes be a little bit more risky, because at this point, risk have a dollar amount associated with it.
Things associated with risk now.
Exactly. So when it's less of an investment involved on the table, you kind of now want to have the brain you have now with the creativity you had back then. Mm-hmm. And so I think part of it is that I really enjoy the excitement behind art in the city in general. Unfortunately, when the recession happened, we lost a lot of galleries in the city as well due to that, and they never reopened. And so I think just having that more of a buzz around it, like the wonderful things that we're doing in Castleberry, but Maya Bailey's doing in Castleberry as well, that add an energy now that's coming back is a really good thing. And I think that having that type of community where you have different events going on and you can do all these things, it makes you feel more creative. But honestly, I really enjoy where we are now. I really enjoy what's happening. I really enjoy how even in the mainstream, more of us are talking about art. More black people are talking about art, and still working through how we talk about it, but it's happening, right? And when I say how we talk about it, what I mean now is that a lot of times we talk about it from specifically the financial piece of it or aspect of it, or even through a lens that's not really ours, meaning that someone from outside our community is telling us what's good in our community and we're listening to them. And I can't wait to the point where we actually determine what's good for us, put money behind that, yeah, and increase the value of those things as well. And we're doing that some now, but I'd like to see more of that happening as well.
Okay. Now, you all were doing this stuff and it was going well. Like, when was Zukot born? And more importantly, like, what does Zukot mean? Like, how did y'all even land on that idea?
So it's funny, doing the art tastings, so we did something called art tasting number 1, where we talked about collecting, how to collect, why to collect, but not what to collect. We started doing those early on also to educate people about why collecting is important. After that, we had a partnership, I don't know if you all remember, Straits. It was Ludacris'.
Yeah, the restaurant. Yeah, that was the one. It's the steak market now.
Exactly. So we used to do art there, do the art for them. Solo hooked us up over there, okay, and he was running the restaurant at the time, and we would do art in conjunction with a radio station, and we would have art on the walls, and then we'd also do those art tastings. Now during this whole time, we were still renting out gallery spaces, doing shows throughout the city. We'd find a gallery, hey, let us rent out, how much would it cost us for you to take everything down for the weekend, let us hang some work up. So we started with that. And at the same time this is going on, well, it's time for us to do our next show. The Zucot Gallery back then was owned by our business partner now, Troy Taylor. Okay. So we have the same type of conversation. Hey, Troy, we want to talk about possibly doing a show. Well, Troy and I met, we had some conversations, and then we ended up doing a show together. That was in conjunction with the Times Warner Morning Show, because we're also doing work with the cruises and all that kind of stuff back then. and it was a really good show. We had a great time. I invited Troy uh, to an art tasting at Straits, and so after that, we have more and more conversation. Now let's do a full show. So we do this exhibition together. After the exhibition is done, Troy comes to me and Omari, and we're all talking how well the show went, and this one was up for longer, for like 3 weeks, which is crazy for us at the time, right? Not a weekend. Yeah. And Troy came up and said, "You know what, man?" They said in life it's important to do well, but it's more important to do good. What would it be like if we did good together? And so we formed a partnership then, and Zucot Gallery then became at the time we were Premier Art. He was doing Zucot Gallery. We formed a company called H&T Art Partners, and we've been going ever since. And Zucot is actually his Troy's grandmother was the first to be able to sell her goods in the marketplace in St. Kitts, in the island of St. Kitts. Okay. And they used to say that she was a shrewd businesswoman, and they would say that her temperament was more of a Zucat, which is vicious, at times, So Zucat softened up as Zucot, so they affectionately called her Zucot. So it's named after a family member. So when you think about it, it's two families coming together. So it's my brother and I, along with our father and his artwork, and then it's Troy with his family legacy as well. We all came together, so the name Zucot.
Okay. And I mean, I've been in the space. The space is amazing. I mean, for those that haven't, you got to go check it out. I've been to definitely some different events, activations there, also seen stuff. But like one thing I appreciate about it too is it feels very open. I mean, I haven't been to a ton of art galleries, so but if I could tell, I mean, it's very open, right? But like, what did you all do as you all kind of like start to evolve the idea with Troy and everybody else to make sure that it didn't feel intimidating? Because I know a lot of people, again, a lot of black folks, a lot of people probably don't spend a lot of time in art galleries. Right. They maybe think it's intimidating, right? So like, what were you all doing intentionally to make sure that it felt welcoming and open like that?
I think that's where that disruption innovation piece comes in, right? So when you think about traditional galleries, or when you think about a stereotypical gallery, what do you think about? It's like
it's quiet,
stale. Yes. People don't speak to you, right. Unless people want to acknowledge you when you walk in the door. But I also realize, like, look, if we're making an unapologetic black space, we're making it for black people. Now, you try to walk into a space and not speak to somebody when they come in your door. You already start off wrong, right? So how do we make it welcoming in general? But then also, what are we playing? Like, what music is in the background? What's that? Is it something that's familiar? Whether it be jazz or R&B, whatever it is. Is it something that we that makes you feel like, wait a minute, this is different than what I was expecting? Yeah. And then you walk in and somebody there is saying, "Welcome to Zucot Gallery," smile on their face, talking to you, and then trying their best to answer any questions you might have. And so you then feel even more comfortable because now you're like, man, like so tell me, what is this? What is this paint? Like, why do you do this? Or what? And so you're having now this dialogue. What we've gone to now as we kind of put more and more technology in the gallery. We have QR codes down next to a lot of the work as well. That then talks about the narratives from the artist's perspective as well. So now they can read about what they're looking at also. Mm-hmm. So there's some video things that we're doing as well that's coming up. We're trying to work with some AI concepts right now as well, just trying to get more and more of that out there. So that connection from you to the artwork, to understanding it, and to why it's important for you to either put this in your office, your building, your home, why that's important can all be connected a little bit easier. And you feel comfortable doing it, and it's not something where you don't feel like you belong. And so I always think about when you design spaces like that for people of a certain demographic, with with them in mind, everyone else feels comfortable as well. So what works for now that where it's designed now, whoever comes in feels comfortable when they're in the space.
Yeah. Now, tell me a little bit about the kind of the business of art galleries, right? Like, what's like the day to day, like, what's the business model behind an art gallery?
So the business, it's funny. Galleries make money a few ways, of course, selling work. In that regard, you think about it almost like the music business, where if we're the label, then you have the artist, then you sell the artist's work, and then the artist gets a piece of it, the gallery keeps a piece. That's one side. But then, for example, we just did a film recently in the gallery. So there's rentals like that. There's event rentals, things like that also help continue, because the business in general it's an expensive, costly business. I mean, light bulbs alone, right? So you have to figure out other ways of staying open. So whether it be selling the art, we also can lease art to films. We can rent the space out for films, rent the space out for private events. But there's always these other things that we are doing constantly because that monthly is necessary, right? And so to pay the mortgage, but not only that though, to make sure that the art's taken care of, to make sure that all the bills are paid, and in times like this, where we're seeing all this funding and erasure happen, you have to become even more creative.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing now.
You know, now there's art. There's one side of art, obviously. I think collecting and people want to get into that. And I mean, even for me, I'm starting to get into a space like, all right, I need to get me some pieces up in here. I'm gonna come over there and check y'all out. Hopefully y'all got some stuff on the firm. I'm playing, but
We got payment plans though, seriously.
there we go. There we go. But for a lot of people too, I think there's some intimidation because they don't understand one, how art is priced, but I think they probably have a perception art is just like almost a asset class, right? Like, what do other communities know about leveraging art as an asset and kind of building wealth through art that our community doesn't know?
I would honestly say most communities are not aware it's a wealth class that may be more aware of it. But um, the way art really gets value is through the secondary market, which is like auction houses. And so we see this on TV all the time. People paddles bidding on things,
Right.
everything else is driving up the value of things. And once it's driven up, it's now worth this new value. Well, to kind of explain this in kind of a loose way, just for time, but literally, artwork is something that you can control or increase value of through the secondary market. If you look at works like even like by Basquiat, for example, and so you have a piece that sells for $110 million in auction, right? What people never talk about though is the fact that the billionaire who bought that piece had one at one point before that for $85 million that he bought. Then you ask the question, what happens to that investment, $85 million, when he bought this next one for $110 million, and increased the value of everything, right? But at the same time, what happens is at a lower level, when you start this, whatever I say something is, it is, meaning like value. So right now we know if you look at a Louis Vuitton purse that's canvas, it can cost more than a Coach bag, right? That's leather. Which costs more, canvas or leather?
Leather.
But in this case,
So it's canvas, right?
right. So what happens a lot of times in the art world, you can have a piece. Let's say we all begin to collect, and we're now buying at a certain price point. Now I'm saying, all right, Brian, I need you to get on the board of this museum. I need someone else to begin to write about this work. We're now publishing the work. We're making sure it's now being placed at museums on the boards that you're part of. We're now also getting the word out, and now we're supporting this gallery and this artist, who, at the same time now, are beginning to grow and grow this base, this marketing base for this particular artist. Now we're all doing this with one another. So now we have your collector friends are buying the work. We're all buying it, let's say at $5, $10, $15,000 as it goes up. Now at some point we say, look, it's time for us now to take this to auction. Now mind, I'm really streamlining this example. So when we go to auction, we say, all right, Brian, I need you to put 2 of your pieces up in auction. Now the plan is that we're gonna buy them back. But when we buy them back, we're going to drive the price up to a certain price point, and then we're gonna buy them back at the new price. Now, the reason why we do that is that when art is appraised, appraisers look at how much work went for at auction, and they use that sometimes as a baseline. So you do this over enough times, next thing you know, the pieces that you were buying for 5 and 6,000, 12,000, depending what the market was saying, now against the secondary market, which is the auction houses, you've now just increased value that way, which is why you'll see a Picasso worth 300 million. Like, how does it even get to be that much? But it's happening in an entire different space. It's happening in the auction market. And I think that's a space that's wide open for us in our communities. Currently, our work is there, but we're not there. And right? And also you begin to ask the question then is that, well, who's determining the value of our things?
Yeah.
And if we're not in the room, guess who can't do that? We don't. And we also then don't get the benefit of that new value, because with that, you can now borrow off of, you can do all types of things with it. It's literally creating capital and wealth. Most wealthy people have an art collection. It's not because you get money, all of a sudden you just love art. It's a tool. And what I will say though is that before you get to that part, I know from what we do, we want to talk more about the intrinsic value of it as well, because it's important that we also tell our stories and we collect our stories so we can pass them down to the next generation, so that there is meaning behind the work as well. It's not art for just art's sake, you know? And we got to start caring about those things also.
Yeah, because I think one thing I remember you talking about is how we get told kind of who the top artists are in our community by people from outside of our culture. Like, why do you think that kind of stuff happens? Because we're not in those rooms, right?
Right. But also, we allow it to happen. And honestly, think about this: how much power do we have to go into any other culture and tell them what's great in theirs?
Exactly.
Would anybody listen to us? If I said, "Hey, this antiquity that's not from my culture is the most important thing ever," and that culture would be like, "No, it's not. We don't even care about that."
Yeah.
But in our case, a lot of times it's done. I think that, and we're beginning to see more control of that happening now, where we are beginning to take the reins and kind of, and there's pockets of collectors now who are saying like, no, I think we like this, and I think that we can take some of these rules that have been created around our work and do away with those, and ask the question of why is that the rule, you know. And so I think ownership is everything. Same thing happens in music, and many of the arts, really, we're still fighting to tell our stories in film right now because of the ownership problem.
Yeah.
So same way.
What does more support like that look like? Because again, I think for a lot of folks, there's just a general intimidation factor, there's a lack of knowledge. It's always interesting too. Like I do a lot of stuff with the city, and we talk about things like grants all the time, and it's like you kind of find out it's like the same couple people get the grants because that's all that hears about them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we don't even know where to look to get this information. Like how can our community be more intentional about getting involved and educating ourselves and finding ways that we can support?
I would say step one, just go to a gallery on a Saturday. Just go in there. Like, you'd be surprised. I know the number of people come to the gallery and say things like, "Man, I didn't expect this. Like, I like this," right? And because once again, it's this initial idea versus what's real. And I think that when you see spaces that are dedicated to you, there's going to be a natural connection to some of those things that you see in there. Now, so initially, it's not all about just coming there. Like, if I come in there, I gotta buy a painting today. No, it's not like that. First of all, you need to determine what you even like, right? Now, there's other ways of supporting galleries, whether it be through, many a gallery will have all the other types, from books to merch and everything else, if you just want to support the space. But when it comes down to finding work, what you hang on your walls is a reflection of who you are. So we want to help you find that piece that reflects who you are. And I guarantee when you put up work in your home, it does something for you and your home. Like, it's a feeling that I can't describe unless you do it. We have something called Zukot at home, where we ask people to send us in images of work they bought from the gallery so we can show what work looks like in a home space. And if you were to take that work down, that space would look completely different.
Yeah.
But also, those people bought that piece for a reason. You have people who say, "Look, man, every time I make a new deal or in business or something like that, I'm gonna commemorate it with a painting." Or there were couples. Actually, there was a couple that every year they gave one another, every gift they gave one a piece of art for. So whether it be anniversary, birthday, whatever, it was just a piece of art. No matter the price point, the artist, I'm giving you art for these holidays or these special moments. And then that collection became the basis of the collection that's now at the Gantt Museum in North Carolina. And so when we think about what we have, a lot of times we don't see it as that. You buy what you like first. And I guarantee you many of the blue chip arts that we have now, when people bought them that first time around, they were just buying what they liked. Yeah. And we need to be part of that. Instead of waiting on validation to come first and then trying to catch it on the second wave. We need to be participating in what we determine what's good and what's not from our perspective. So buy what you like.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I think about a year ago, I went to a meeting, and it was at this lady's home up in Buckhead, and you walked in, and it was just art everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was some expensive art up in there too. Like,
right.
It was even it even had this one piece. I'll never forget. She had this one piece where it was a TV screen, and it was a guy that was like sweeping trash, mm-hmm. and the way he would sweep the trash, it was a clock. And it was like, but it was real. It was a real clock though. Like, that was the actual time. Like, he was basically not. I was like, it was some kind of performance art where I guess he spent however much time, like, basically sweeping trash into these lines, and for every minute it would line up, but you're just sitting here thinking like, wow, right? So to your point, like it's a reflection of you. Like, how does a person like when you recommend that, like, what should people be thinking about when they go into these galleries to find something that kind of represents them? Are there certain things they should look for or think about? I mean, because obviously they might not be as educated in what to start with, but like, can you give them some advice on like how should you even kind of think about what inspires you or what kind of art might be interesting?
I would say just be open. I think when I always talk about it in comparison to everything else, right? When I say that, I'm talking about the other arts, right? So the same way a poem, a song can evoke emotion, it can make you laugh, it can make you cry. So can art if you let it. So just go in there, and I guarantee you, you will find things you like. Some of the best parallels I can think of, even in fashion, there are certain things, there are certain places you can go. You can walk into a store, and there's certain things in that store. All those shirts and all those pants, they just you're drawn to.
Yeah.
No rhyme, no reason. You're just drawn to it. It's the same way. There's certain songs I like. I have no idea why I like them. Right? It's the exact same thing. I think what happens sometimes we try to we look for outside influence to tell us what's good, and now we do that a lot, right? With everything. I always give this example of if you have on something I don't like, you telling me the name brand of it does not matter. I still don't like that thing. But in our society, a lot of times that may change someone's mind, right? Art's not that though. Art is like, do you like it? It doesn't matter who else had it. It doesn't matter if somebody else is the greatest painting ever. You may not like it. So what you literally is, what do you like? And in a society and a time right now where we're told what to like so much, for some people that's somewhat difficult. So I would just say approach it with an open mind. Come in to just enjoy yourself and actually pay attention to what's on the walls. Because so many times we go into spaces, we never even look at the walls, right? But take a look. It's just spend time in that spaces. Understand who the artists are, because sometimes the painting itself may not be the main thing you love. You may love the narrative about the painting even more than you love the painting and the story, what it stands for. So allow yourself time to absorb all those things and ask questions.
Yeah. Now, I mean, again, like when you think about that too, like even looking at the sweatshirt you got right now, the culture costs, right? Like I know a big thing with you is intentionality and making sure people aren't being performative in how they support and being more intentional how they support. Like, what does it look like in people's everyday behavior when it comes to just the arts in general and how they can be more intentional and understanding that culture does cost?
I think now more than ever, it's becoming more apparent just because of what's happening in this country right now. We're watching erasure happen all around us. And it's like, what are we going to do to respond to this? Like they're closing our museums. Okay, so what's like, save me with the complaints. This stuff has been happening to black folks in this country forever. What are we going to do about it? And because our ancestors did things to protect what's ours, it's our turn now to do the exact same thing. And so when you look at whether it be erasure of art, books, complete bodies of works by authors have been taken out, right? And we're complaining about it, but this is the action piece of it. And the action piece is to support it any way you see possible. We even do field trips now for young people through our nonprofit organization, Our Brothers Foundation, just so they can even understand the importance of it at a young age. But we have to perform in a way we show up to support, not just with I came in and saw, but also with our dollars, with our time, pass the word along, encourage it, and be intentional. So if I know that Castleberry is Castleberry here in Atlanta is the highest concentration of African American owned businesses, then maybe I should go to Castleberry a little bit more and just try to shop around a little bit more to make sure Castleberry still exists. Right? So it's things that we need to do just from an intention. And it's not hard to do. It's just supporting, spreading the word. If you don't live in Atlanta, you got a friend going to Atlanta, hey, check out Zucot Gallery while you're there. You know, like, check out these places while you're there. And I think with that intent, we're gonna be okay. I think sometimes when we as we've ascended financially, at times we can get further and further away from our things, and it's important that we do not do that. And so, like, what's the luxury brands that we buy that are black owned? Why aren't there more? Why do we love certain things, certain brands, and then we will completely criticize some of the black owns? Why? And so that's why I say it's a complex conversation, but at the end of the day, it's a challenging one that we have to addressed with grace, understanding, because we all understand some of the traumas and everything else that we're also dealing with. So we deal with patience, but it's like, yo, at the same time, while we're trying to get past things are closing. There's businesses, historical landmarks, things are being shut down. So we need to address it in a way of urgency, but that's thoughtful at the same time. So for us, it's saying just come to the gallery. You know, we are literally here on two sides. One, this financial piece that we've spoken about, but there's a community side as well, which is like the nonprofits and things like that we're doing to actually help the next generation, including art tastings on Saturdays where we're just trying to educate us about collecting art. Period. So we do something in the gallery. They're free for the gallery. Art tasting maybe every 6 weeks or so, where artist comes in and talks about the work, how to collect, why to collect, but not what to collect. We do those. And then we've spread that out now, so we do them for corporations as well. Those are not free, but we do those as well. We do those as well though because we want to talk about also how you communicate your diversity proposition or your values as a company. You can do that by what you hang on your walls.
Yeah.
So stop telling me what it is, show it to me. And so these are other areas that we're looking at, and how do we continue to fight against what's happening. And quietly, this erasure that we're seeing right now has always been on the backside. It's just now more in our face.
Yeah.
And so, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's now saying, hey, we may need to speed up on the way we message, the way we respond to those messages, and how we fight back with our dollars.
Yeah, I mean the erasure intentionality behind that is very obvious, but it's also very interesting kind of when you take a step back and look at how it all happens, right? Because I think for a lot of people, their form of activism is just saying this isn't cool on social media. And then they kind of go on to the next thing, right? It's like, okay, well, you also have to go out or act, you know what I mean? Or like, or they're saying, oh, I don't like what's happening in politics. Well, you also have to like go vote, you know what I mean? And like, or you think about ownership, like there's this whole idea right now where, oh, you don't have to own anything. You can just rent everything. And again, I think for our community, that's what's really dangerous, right? It's like, it's like this whole idea of like, you don't have to own anything. You can just hit a button, it shows up, or you can rent to own, or you can, lease it, or, you don't need a car, you can just get Uber, like, or you don't have to need a house, you can just rent forever, right? Like ownership is important, especially in our community, right?
Exactly. And what ends up happening is that if we don't own it, somebody owns it, right? And why is the narrative being pushed to us? And it's not being pushed to everyone, right? So there's something special that exists that's there that clearly some powers that be are trying to kill. And so the resistance then is that, Dr. Key of Village Market always says support is a verb. Same type of situation. Like, what's the verb? What's your verb that you're doing? More than post. What's your verb? And like I said, it's not necessarily always financial. It's telling someone else about it. It's an opportunity. We get so many calls of people saying, hey, I was referred to you by so and so. That goes. That goes to keeping doors open, bills paid, everything else, right? And I think that just those conversations, and even for us right now, and understanding what's going on, we start doing Black Business Saturdays on certain times of the month where we just invite other businesses into our gallery who don't necessarily have a brick and mortar, so they can glean up some of our clientele. It's things like that, but we're all very intentional, and I think that as long as that continues to happen, we're all gonna be all right. Especially if we can't get it right in a city like Atlanta. I mean, we literally are. If it fails here, we are. We are gone. And so that's why I appreciate so much, even at the city level, and this administration and their attention to some things that we're concerned about in regard when it comes to just the arts in general. For example, I know this is probably the most we've personally seen from an administration in regards to that. So I appreciate the political side of it as well, and recognize its importance for the city.
Yeah, one thing you also talked about is that, if we don't do these things, we could be the generation that loses a lot of this stuff, that it kind of sets it back. Like, what's your perception on that?
It's like not on my watch, man. Like, I'm like, I'm gonna do everything I can, man, to make sure that we don't lose these things, especially, this being our home, and, growing up in a city where I saw people look like me at every position of power.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to lose that. And I also recognize how rare that is for this country. So if it's not gonna be, what other city is there, right? And so I think that we can't get too comfortable with the history of this city, and we have to make sure that we recognize that people like yourself are creating history right now, and for that very reason, you need to be supported to make sure that the next branding that comes up is supported the same way, and it's easy, and it should get easier and easier for this next generation. It's like they should not have to fight as hard, whether it be from mentorship to true mentorship, you know, and just giving free advice, you know, all those things that maybe you've learned in the past where I'm not competing with my elders, but I'm actually getting true support for all those things. And I think I'm fortunate enough to see that I've gotten some support from people who did not have to take the time to spend with me, and now I understand that that's my responsibility as well.
Yeah, I remember I was talking to my guy Terrence Albritton that started Grady Baby Co. Right, and like he was kind of saying, yeah, like if you have the opportunity to help the next generation of your kids start on second or third base, like why wouldn't you?
Like this, and you know, and at the same time, still instilling the importance of
Right.
the community aspect, because so while you might have started on third base, it's a kid still at home right now, you know. So now you now need to look out for them too. I think, and so Atlanta's an interesting place. I was at a dinner last night and we were talking about like how many affluent black neighborhoods are there in this city? And then you start asking, well, why not? Like, where can you go where you see, you know, where are these pockets of us that are doing well, that have nice grocery stores, have nice areas that we live in, communities. Um, where's that? Where's that? And if, like I said, Atlanta's the test for the rest of the nation, right? And if we can't get it right here in Atlanta, where can we get it right at? And so I'm fully optimistic in this city, and understanding the importance of spaces like ours and like the other black galleries in the city, and other black spaces like from the Gathering Spot to Village Market that are creating these spaces where um, our stories are being told to everyone and to the world.
You mentioned Art Brothers Foundation, but I want to kind of go back on that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So our Brothers Foundation, we say the acronym is everyone can come to Zukot to eat. EAT is EAT. It's the entrepreneurship, arts, and technology. It's where they all kind of meet. And so we've put together programs for young people from really from elementary school all the way up to through college, whether it be we have internship programs that we're due, but we also do field trips for young people. Um, we also had a partnership with Microsoft, so we apply technology in the gallery, so we can do tours or things like that through using some technology in the gallery, using the QR codes and all that good stuff. And I can tell you, our very first field trip was years ago at this point, but I remember the first school was like open campus, right? When I was
Open campus. What's up?
yeah. It's like one of those transitional schools, right? Yeah. And I remember I was holding the door, and I was holding the door open for the kids to come get off the bus, and this kid walks past me, and he doesn't know I'm one of the owners of the gallery, and you just hear him say, "Man, this is about to be some bull," because you know we come to a gallery, right? Yeah. And I just smile. I'm like, okay, this is about to be one of those groups, right? So we had a chair set up, and I walk up to the front and introduce myself as one of the owners of the gallery. I can see his face, like I just called this man stuff BS, right? Mm-hmm. But in those 45 minutes of us talking about the art business, showing them around the gallery, having to pick out stuff that they like, you know, Mr. Henderson, when I get X amount of dollars, I'm gonna buy that painting. But my thing is that you can change a child's life in a very short amount of time, and maybe possibly change the trajectory of their life just by exposure. And so that's what the Art Brothers Foundation is about. And it's about creating moments like that. But at the same time, doing the same thing for adults in those art tastings where somebody says, man, I never even thought about what's on my walls at the house. Or, man, I guess I could, or I should the next time, the next building I design, create spaces for this, you know, or interior designers saying that I have never created an aesthetic that included works by African American artists, and they're African American. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's necessary on both sides. So our Brothers Foundation is there to do that.
Yeah, man. Look, exposure is important. I was lucky to see and get exposed to a lot of things growing up to just kind of show me that there was more than just what's inside and what's outside of 285 in life. And I always kind of use the example of you don't know a big house until you've seen a big house. Right. And then you have to realize there's a bigger house somewhere else. Exactly. Right. And I think that's how I've always kind of looked at just being exposed to things. And so as people kind of, learn about art and they come to Zukot and they get exposed, like for that person that kind of steps in there for the first time, what do you hope they take away?
I just want to have a good time. Come in. I hope that they appreciate the work that's on the walls. They appreciate or understand or can feel that it is designed for them, right? And once again, that being all walks of life, when they come in though, I want them to feel different. I want them to leave feeling different. Yeah. Like, do you feel good when you leave? Did you learn something? Did you find a piece that you like? Did it just shift anything in you in a positive way? That's what we want.
This has definitely shifted something to me. Like, this is the year I'm getting me my first nice art piece, man. I'm taking those old Hennessy bottles down. I'm putting some stuff up. We going in the right direction, man. Look, Onaje, this has been great, man. This has been a great conversation. Before we get up out of here, man, please tell people how can they support you? How can they support Zukot? Like, give them all the things. How can they find you?
Sure, we can be found on Instagram, all social media through Zucot Gallery. We released Culture Cost as a brand in actually late last year. The idea behind it, though, is that with everything going on in this country right now, the idea is that culture does cost. If you want to continue to see things exist, you have to invest in those things. So you'll see the red for the O inside of cost. That represents the red dot that you put on the painting when it's sold.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a call back to that, but and when you buy a piece, what you're doing is that you're literally becoming a custodian of that culture, and you're passing it down from generation to generation. So the cost of culture is way more significant than just a transaction, and so that's what this is about. We also we're open during the week by appointment for folks interested in purchasing things like that. We're open on Saturdays to the public from 12 to 6, and we'd love to have you all come out. We have some, and as you follow us, you'll see that we have exhibitions. We do about 5 to 6 exhibitions a year of new works. We always have more work to show you than what's on the walls, so that's also something as well. So if you see something you think you might like, you would say, "Hey, do you have more work by this artist?" The answer is probably yes. So we'd love to just come and spend some time with you and help you find that right piece.
Absolutely, man. Well, look, this has been a great conversation. Appreciate you. I hope you got one of those in black because I'm gonna need one.
Definitely got one in black. I got one for you. Got you.
Here we go, man. Yo, Onaje, man. Yo, appreciate you pulling up, man. Congratulations on all the stuff y'all doing. Zukot's amazing. We got some stuff coming up. We're gonna make it happen, man. And thank y'all for all the work y'all doing with the culture, man. We really appreciate it, bro.
Thank you for including us. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. With that said, y'all, that's the pod. We out. Peace.